Hello, it's Friday at the almost lunch hour. I mean, we're kind of coming to the end of it, but we're here with you, braving through the wilderness of the lunch hour. If you want to stick on, have that extra sandwich, that little extra cup of coffee, hang on with us for about 30 more minutes. We're going to be talking about finance. We're going to talk about money, the things that got us going. I have two guests today. One you may know, one you may not. But our first guest today is his name is very strong. It's a conventional, like, just strong American name. Senor Ben. Just Ben. Hello. Just say hi, Ben. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. And I ran out of intro. There we go. I redid it. And also joining us too from straight from Sacramento, the Satoshi himself, Mr. Satoshi Sacramento. Hello. How are you doing, son? How are you doing?
Hello, Robert.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. We're cut off the intro. I screwed up already. So. But again, we're here on a Friday talking about money and finance, just helping you along, finding, that thing that us common people, I view myself as a commoner. I'm somewhat proficient in my investments, but also I feel very ignorant in times when I'm like trying to figure out what to invest and where I'm going with my money. So, and I think I'm not alone. Oh, crickets. Huh? All right. So if you want to hang on for about 30 minutes, like I said, we're going to be talking about just finances. And we had Ben on today, more so because I've been helping him kind of come along with his dream, his aspirations, and building a bigger, brighter future. We're going to be talking about fears. We're going to talk about life circumstances. And Satoshi's here to talk about crypto. What else is he here to do? Right?
Or whatever you want, Robert.
Oh, that's here in the office, but we'll talk about that some other time. So Ben and I have been looking and exploring different options. I do real estate, as my primary business, and I've been helping Ben trying to find a home. What I guess in finding a home for you, what have been your goals, and what has motivated you to get into the housing market?
So personally, I've had some life changes, and I'm a newly single dad, and my daughter's 16 months old. So with that, I'm trying to think towards the future and what I want for her and having more space. I currently own a condo that I live in. I have her half the time. So it's just looking forward and having that structure and that basis basically for the life that I want for myself and her. And that's been really motivating for me. And seeing the market the way it is we talked about emotions. I think there's a bit of a FOMO element there and saying, do I need to get in now? Even if I don't need the house right now? And really dealing with that decision a lot. I know we've had a lot of talks about the emotions on that. So yeah, that's I think sums it up pretty well.
I think, and Satoshi, you can jump in a second, but I think for the most part, when I first bought my condo, it was right after my divorce. That was approximately 7 years ago now, Satoshi, and I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to think short term and long term. So short term for me is like I just needed a place. So I ended up getting a condo. I at that time it was $80,000, and I was really hesitant to park any money there because I felt like I was buying at the high end of the market. Again, this is 7 years ago. I felt like I was buying at the high end of the market and really didn't. I put a lot of money down in that situation, more than I actually had. And I just went for it. And luckily, as I look back now, it was a very smart thing to do because I always anticipated in the future using that as something to leverage off on as a rental property. It was never intent to live there forever, just short term to kind of remedy my situation and then potentially use that in the future. You ever come across that situation, Satoshi?
No, but I was just kind of thinking about what you're saying about real estate. Like real estate is just, it's a really slow market. It takes many, I think of it as just going in waves over many, many years. And so, so is now a good time to buy real estate? I mean, I think that going forward, the millennials are a big group of people, and they're just starting their peak earning years. So they're going to drive demand over the next 7 years, I think. But I think if you're looking to invest in real estate, like we talked before, as long as you can afford the payment, you're fine. I mean, ideally, you want to buy stuff when it's low. So, right. Yeah. But now we can't go back to 2012 now. 2012, there was foreclosures all over the place. Nobody wanted to buy.
Yeah.
That's really the time to buy. So that now, when prices are inflated, you can generate more cash because right as prices go up, you charge more rent to loan it out. Um, so is it a good? So then the question is, it a good time to buy? Is it not a good time to buy? I mean, it's not the greatest time to buy, but I think going forward, the only thing that could kind of suppress housing is, let's say, for example, if the Fed decides, because we have an inflation problem now. So during high inflation, they have to slow the economy down by increasing interest rates. But I think the Fed will have a hard time doing that because the United States has so much debt that, and that's what a lot of people, like, if you look today, inflation was 6%. That was like the big thing today. So everybody's thinking, okay, high inflation now, which we've known, right? That's all we've talked about all year on this show, basically. Inflation. Oh, really? We didn't know that. But anyway, what was I saying about real estate?
I don't know, so
Go off on
many
tangents.
times we go off on a tangent like that. Like this is just me and
Yeah, I was just saying. So inflation is high. So now everybody's thinking they're
boy.
going to increase their interest rates. People are going risk off. So that's why you kind of see people selling off crypto, maybe some of the high flying stocks. But I think long term the Fed will have a hard time doing that.
So I think the core issue, and I think Ben addressed it slightly, was about the fear part of that, and I talked about that too in when I was buying my condo too. The big thing was the fear part of it. Is this the right time? Am I making the right decision? And it's always going to be in hindsight. As far as the future or how the projections are, I mean, there's probably about 4 or 5 different reporting entities that I follow that are projecting anywhere from 3 to 20% appreciation next year, which is crazy because, we should be at the peak of the market, but yet everybody else is reporting that there's going to be high. And I do see that locally. I don't see it nationally. Nationally, we're pretty much at a balanced market when it comes to housing. But locally here, we're still in a very high demand, low supply situation. So that's all it's going to do is aggravate prices further. As short term, I do see prices going up. I just don't know how much further. Long term, there's got to be a pullback somewhere. There's got to be a correction somewhere. And I think that's probably the biggest fear is like, hey, do I put my 40, 50 grand in this one situation and then shit, there's a crash 6 months from now. Like, well, fuck, where am I going to get this money from? Now that I have to make this mortgage payment, I don't have any reserves to really fall back on. That's really probably the biggest fear at all. Isn't that right, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and there's always that when it comes to housing, especially a house that you're going to live in, there's that huge emotional component of just what your life's going to be like. And I think that's part of it for me as well, is that I know I want to be doing different things in the next 2 to 5 years. I want, like I've talked to you about, like I really want a workshop where I can build my side business, right? And I just don't feel like I can do that right now. So it may put me in a position where I'm willing to get into a deal that's not as favorable just so that I can have that lifestyle change and just kind of falling back on the fact that I believe in real estate in the long term.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you're subject to some of those life circumstances. We all are. I think I think all of us are divorced at one point, right?
I've never been married.
Yeah. Oh, you never met. Henry and I have experienced that sort of thing. And, you take a back step when that happens financially, not only emotionally, but, the bigger things like, places to live. Like I was living with a friend for a good 4 months before I found my condo. And you hit these low points and you scrape by. I mean, there was a point where I had like $75 in my account. And it's just like, how the hell do I get through this? And you make it through and you get through there. But, making a big purchase like a condo with $75 in your account is like, oh, okay, this is, I don't know where it's going. But I didn't make that purchase until I actually had some money. So I actually pulled from my retirement savings, which is not good when you're in your mid-30s. You do not pull from your retirement. I'm sure Satoshi will jump all over me for that one. But you do not pull from your retirement. But that's how I bought my condo. And as I look back, was one of the better decisions I made at that time, especially with what I have now. But long term, probably not so much because I just lost a good 7 years of gains, especially like in the S&P. Oh, well, I think my camera went out. Oh, there it goes. Hitting the table too much. So was that a smart move for me, Satoshi? Was that pulling from my retirement account to purchase my condo?
Can I ask, did you do it with a penalty or did you do it with the way where you can
12%.
Put it towards, okay, because sometimes you can put it towards a down payment, right? I know in Roth, but you weren't able to make that up.
No, I pulled it from a rollover IRA from I worked for the state and they did some matching. So I had I think about $70K in there. So I ended up pulling from that, took a 12% penalty, but I had my condo, was that loss compared to the gain? I don't know. I think I evened out long term because right now the condo is worth just a little over 200,000. And I bought it for 80. Smart, possibly a smart move, but I'm still in the green. I'm not in the stock market right now where things are red, right, Henry?
Yeah, and I guess you'd have to do the math. Like, that's pretty easy to do. Just take the money that you would have left in the stock market, see how much you would have gained, and then compare that to how much your condo. If it was 7 years ago, then it was a pretty good time.
But that's the big thing. It's all in hindsight. It's like you made a good decision 5 years ago. I put money into Apple and look where Apple is at now. 5 years ago. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And just like today, there's a lot of hesitancy. There's a lot of fear in making a purchase, especially on Ben's end. It's like, where's this market going to go? Everybody keeps talking about the high, like it's going to crash. But we've been talking about the high and it's going to crash for the last 5 to 7 years. Like everybody's been waiting for that crash and it hasn't happened. There was a correction in the S&P 500, but that was like with everything else in March last year.
Well, I think there's a lot of uncertainty, right? It's like that fear, the FUD, fear, uncertainty,
and
doubt. There's things like the Evergrande thing in China. They're going to start tapering money. They're going to increase interest rates next year. Certain things are, like you're saying, people are worried like, oh, these things are in a bubble now. Now inflation, people are saying, oh, inflation is super high now. And then there's like the Omi virus. What is that going to do? Is that going to, and then I know a lot of workers that are striking. So there, all these things can create like, I'm not too sure. But I think going forward, you always got to look like, okay, what's on discount, right? You're saying I want to invest.
What's being undervalued?
Yeah. And so in
real estate's
for
probably
me,
not that, right?
Real estate's probably not undervalued right now.
Close to the high, right? I think in the stock market, a lot of the names that have kind of been punished are the Cathie Woods, the high conviction, or high flying names. But some of them, like Tesla, is considered a bubble stock, but it's been strong. It's just like at the end of the year, all these funds and mutual places, there's a lot of reallocating and moving things around for certain tax reasons. So I think at the beginning of the year, you'll see that people will allocate more money towards those names. But those are the names that you want to buy. You want to buy the Bitcoins when they're down 20%.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for me too is like, when do you buy? Is the bottom. Last week during Thanksgiving, was it last week? Whatever Thanksgiving was, I threw in a couple grand into Webull, my Webull account, and that's supposed to be my play account. So I have my long-term investment account where I have a lot of the companies that I feel are going to be long-term investments. Like I'm still holding on to Kinross Gold, and I'm still hopeful there, even though it's really disappointing. And I am like holding on to it for I don't know what. I probably should have sold a month ago. But anyway, that's my long-term fund. So I'm not planning on selling any of that. My Webull account is where I deposit all my crypto, which I'm going to have fun with. And having fun with is like, I guess, saving that, remember like what we talk about, saving that money for Vegas. You go have fun with it. And whether you lose it or not, you're okay with that. You're not like putting yourself in a compromising position if you lost it all, that you're going to be hurt and you're going to be like struggling. You're going to, where do I have to go stand in line to the food bank kind of thing? That's not what that money is. And it's a small amount. It's like $2,500, I just threw in there. And I went in there thinking that Bitcoin hit the bottom, and it hasn't. And I'll pull that back up.
And that's okay. But the thing is, you will never, like, nobody can tell the future, and nobody will know like, oh, this is the bottom. I know it. Sometimes you think it is, and then maybe it's not. But that's what markets do. And there will be volatility. So, but also on the upside too. When it starts to go up, then that's when people want to buy because they see like, oh, it's doubling or whatever.
You gotta go. You separate the like. immediate micro view from the macro view and what you believe in. If you believe in that market, if you believe in the American economy, like putting money in the S&P 500 is a good idea, even if it's going, and then if you really believe that, you buy when it goes down, because you know
Right.
in the long term it's going to go up. You can't time those ups and downs, right?
Yeah, you got to have. So basically, what you're saying is you just got to have like conviction or belief that, and for me, I always thought of crypto as a 10-year story. But if everything goes right, I mean, it could be in 5 years, it could really increase in value. But you don't.
But
You
you
know,
believe that, and I'm somebody who probably understands crypto on some level. I work in technology. I'm on the, I'm on the peripheral there, but I am not convinced that for the long-term value. So I haven't put any money into it at all. So
right. Well, you just have to. You have to know that. Look at the adoption rate. Look at the number of people that are using it, and it's got the fastest adoption of any technology that ever, even faster than the internet did in the 90s. So the internet at this point in the 90s was growing around 60% a year, and crypto right now is growing at 115% a year. So it's growing twice as fast, and that's just the number of users. Like Robert contributed to those new number of users this quarter.
I did that last month. I got
As long
Webull
as that,
and I
as
threw
long
it
as
in there.
that is increasing, then and you have to think, okay, now we've known that we're in an inflationary environment, but now people are kind of waking up. Those kind of things, like you were saying, Robert, gold is good. That typically would do well in an inflation environment, but and it might still, you will get these like
I'm waiting.
older traditional guys that will be like, oh, inflation, gold, right? So you could get a bump, but I think it will mostly go to the crypto. But will it go up? Will it go down in the near term? I mean, that you can't tell. You can look at like technical kind of analysis. Look at the charts and get
Going
an
down.
idea based on the path. Is it a good time to buy or is it a bad time to buy? And I mean, I would say if you look at the inflows, the amount of money that's going into crypto, it's still increasing. So I think, let's see, I think Bitcoin had last week 145 million dollars come in. Ethereum was second, Solana was third. So there's money coming in.
I got Ethereum up too.
when you say money coming in, you mean like actually people buying into the crypto market or investments around the crypto, like
Right, like
software technology companies, or
I think it's slowly becoming more institutional. Bitcoin really started off from the retail market, like just people, but now that it's growing in popularity, you do see more institutions, I think, trying to allocate. But it's early for crypto,
yeah.
so a lot of people are scared, right? That's why they came out with the futures ETF as a way to kind of decrease your risk, so somebody could buy Bitcoin and then take insurance against it in case it drops, that kind of thing. So that makes it a little safer for institutions. But yeah, I think it's still early. But again, we're looking over the next couple years. I think it will grow. It will grow into another system that can be used by the financial world.
So and as we transition to the last segment of the show too, the one thing I wanted to address during this and invited Ben on was really to kind of talk about the average person. I truly believe I'm an average person. I think Henry's a little bit above average, just because he's into it a little bit more. He's a little bit more established with his crypto. He kind of understands the market. Definitely a lot more than normal people. If I go to a normal person and say, hey, what are your investments? He's like, well, I have a house. Okay, what else do you have? My wife. Well, that's kind of an investment. I got kids. I'm like, well, kind of investment. If you, if everything falls apart, you can live with them, I guess. But
I told Robert. Remember, I said whenever you invest in crypto, you always feel like you're late.
Yeah.
And then when you're in crypto, you always feel like you don't have enough. And and that was the same for me. I've only been in crypto since last March 2020, so maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years. So I thought, I'm getting in late. I think in Bitcoin at that time was like 8,000 or something.
Well, I will say, I put in some money, and the nice part about Webull and some of these other brokerage accounts, you can buy smaller shares. Like the cool thing, like I am happy to say I have like 2 million shares of Shiba Inu, which equates to like $100. But it's kind of fun, and then that's the fun part about it. But Shiba, I will tell you, is no bueno right now.
I just remembered I actually do have some crypto because Burger King was giving you crypto. And I got a couple Doge coins from Burger King. Yeah.
What is it?
What?
What is the crypto?
Doge. I think I got like 3 Doge coins.
Got some free Dogecoin for buying a
Probably
Whopper.
worth 75 cents, I think. Is that what? I think one coin's like a quarter or something.
I'd have to look it up.
Anyway.
So you have crypto. So you have a crypto wallet. But I want to say that Ben, and probably I too, I'm still a little bit ignorant towards a lot of these things. I'm getting a little bit more established, especially kind of doing the show every week. You're kind of forced into reviewing these things and finding different ways. But I think Ben represents a common person out there just trying to figure out, where do I park my money, and how do I, instead of keeping it at a bank and making less than 1/10 of 1%, what can I put my money in, feel safe about it, and still have that water cooler moment. It's like, shit, I bought that house back in December, and shit, I've gained like 40 grand on that. I'm like, thanks Robert for pointing that right direction. I'm like, well, at least it wasn't in Coolidge. I looked at a house in Coolidge.
Well, a lot of it too just depends on your risk curve. So real estate is one way. So let's say you had some money and you're like, hey, I want to get in because inflation is high. If you have money in the bank, then in inflation, like I think inflation is more like 12-14%. It's not 6.
Yeah.
So I think it's higher. So that money's losing value. And so it's like, okay, well, now what do I do with it? Like houses have gone up, stock market's up, crypto, it was up, now it's down. So now I'm not sure. It's like, how do you know? So it all depends on your risk curve. So I would say real estate is kind of more on the conservative side.
Yeah.
But then it's like, it's a big commitment because you gotta come up with some money. And then if, I'll get a renter. Well, what if the renter leaves? Can I afford it? There's all those kind of questions that you have.
For repairs, and then if they break stuff, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that, and me personally, knowing, kind of the markets and feeling a little bit more safe. I bought at the high, I bought our house towards the end of October and felt like we overpaid, just flat out overpaid. But the opportunity presented itself. We put 50,000 down, so we put 10%. The opportunity presented itself, and we went for it, knowing that, looked at the comps, looked at the rental comps. It has a casita. It's next to, it's a lakefront property. So there was a lot of value that was there that if I had to dump it or had to sell it for some reason, that I wouldn't necessarily lose a lot. You might lose a little bit. But I still was able to get ahead, even though in my mind, I'm like, shit, I know I'm buying at the high end. And right now I'm doing a lot of repairs where I'm like, shit, why did I buy this house? But once you get past all that and you get down the road 6, 9, 12, a couple years from now, where I think it starts to feel comfortable again, and you look back and you're like, okay, that was a good decision. But it's all perspective, all emotion. So it's either you made a good decision or you didn't. Things happen the right way or they didn't. You meet some girl and then it just changes everything, whether good or bad. Whatever.
Your mom always told you to buy a house, so. Oh. I mean, for most people, it feels comfortable. Like, okay, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. I'm buying a house. I know. But I mean, it's not the only. You can make money from stocks and other things too. Like, the only issue is like for me, when I first started, I would have loved to buy a house, but I just didn't have the money. I didn't have the money to put down.
That's the biggest
so
hang up.
I slowly had to scrape that, and we've talked about it on the show. Like, how do you, do I get another job? Do I work extra? Maybe I could sell some stuff. Maybe let me generate some cash. And let me get that little buffer that I have, and then what am I going to do? I don't have enough to buy a house. Well, let me try to put it in the market, and try to do so. That's kind of how I started doing that, and that slowly just started to build. And it's like, whoa, okay. Now and then I did use some of that money to buy real estate. So I sold some of the stocks, bought real estate, and so now I have both.
Well, and for me, I think we were kind of talking about this before the show. It really has to do with the person too. Yep. Like I was telling you. I don't invest in individual stocks really because that's not how I want to spend my time. But for me, and I like working on houses. I had a handyman business. I've renovated 2 houses myself. Like that's what I'm passionate about. Yep. And I want to spend more time on that. Whereas I have friends who don't know how to use a screwdriver, and I would not recommend that they go and buy a house and become a landlord. You know what I'm saying? It kind of depends on the person too.
Yeah, your tolerance level, that risk, what you feel comfortable with, and then obviously reaching out to somebody that in the business, because I help with, some, I do my own rentals, and then I do the purchasing, so I can inform you a lot of what's out there. I did flips for a couple of years, and that I think that's benefited you in some of those situations. And it's all about costs. How much do you want to put into it, and how much you're going to feel about it at the end of the day. And you can't blame anybody else. That's the other thing. I think we all want to have somebody else make that decision for them, and then be able to blame somebody, like, you put all your money with Satoshi ETF, and he's like, yeah, I can make you about 6% year over year, and then he only makes like 1%. You're like, hey, where all my money come from? You said 6, and he's like, well, it's the stock market, and it's just easier to blame him rather than just accept responsibility that you gave that to somebody else. And that's probably the bigger thing, is like you hate admitting that you screwed up, and with real estate, stocks, everything else, I'm learning these last couple of weeks that there was some shit I shouldn't have bought that I took a chance on. They're pretty negative right now, and I'm hoping in the next, at the beginning of the year, they pick back up and I'm in the green again. And so I think that's the bigger pill to swallow, is like, hey, you're going to make a mistake, just hopefully it doesn't, bite you completely in the ass, just a little nibble maybe. All right. So, is there any specific questions that you had, sir, that you'd want to approach us? We're coming to the tail end of the show. So,
I watched your guys' show where you first bought your crypto, and watching that and talking to you a little bit, I think I'm more in the camp where I might want to do what you're doing. Yeah. Have a little fun money, just try. I see the opportunities that you're talking about, especially with some of the things like inflation and crypto being down a little bit right now. And maybe believing in it as a technology on the whole. And with all, I think it's two things with crypto for me, is it's the technology and the speculation, where people are, a lot of the value is just off the speculation right now, and that FOMO, where there is very, very much value in the underlying technology. I'm starting to, I don't know, you're saying 5-10 years. I've never actually thought about where it will really truly be adopted and be at that point where I would want to sell my crypto, it's made it or whatever. I don't know. So,
well, the good thing is throwing it in there. And I knew I had, so part of my whole thing was I didn't want to put any money outside of the goal. The main goal was getting the house. So we got the house, and I was just kind of sitting on my hands, and I'm like, okay, so just finally do it. So I threw $500 in there first and foremost. And then I swear to God, that first weekend it shot up like a couple $100, and I'm like, okay, I got to get into this. So then
I'm afraid of that, to be honest with you.
Well, it gets you all going, and you're like, oh shit, that was 20%. So then I threw another $2,000 in there, and then now I'm down like a couple $100. I'm like, okay, listen, it gives me a space to sit down and really start looking at the charts, really start getting a feel for the differences between Shiba and Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana, because those are my 4 positions right now. Trying to get a flow for how they do that. And, it's good when you just take that first step, because it forces you to actually kind of be involved in it. It wasn't crazy money, it was just kind of fun money. And when you're able to get to that point, it's a little bit easier to swallow if things go south, because I think right now I'm down about 10. So.
Yeah, but if you believe in it, you should be buying more, right?
I told myself I'm going to limit myself. So yes, I look at the charts right now, and I'm like, oh shit, the Bitcoin.
I just try to kind of think of it like back in the day. Yeah. I talk like it's old, but people would buy CDs. They had $10,000 in the bank. They would go to the bank and they would buy a CD, and it would pay you.
Those CDs,
3-4%, right? But you can't do that anymore. So I kind of, you can kind of think of it that way. Like, okay, I have some money on the side here, and, I'm going to put it in there for 6 months or a year, and I'm not going to, I could say, don't look at it, but people look at it. But you kind of just think of that, think of it that way. I kind of, I've told Robert before, I kind of see it as real estate. For me, it's and I started, you got to start with Bitcoin, just because Bitcoin is kind of the store of value. So it's a fixed asset. They're not going to make any more of them. And so it's kind of goldish type in relation to, if the dollar keeps going down, I don't see any end to them slowing down printing of money. It's just money is going all over the place. So that just that in of itself, the value of it is you can put your money in there and it's safe, secure. Nobody's going to change it or anything. But then you have the technology thing where it can really do a lot with finance. And then the question is, well, can Bitcoin do that? It's kind of slow. So then Ethereum is kind of like the leader in DeFi and like a separate internet protocol, I guess, because when the internet was invented, it was invented by the government, and they didn't really have like a money associated with it. So this is just providing a different avenue or another way in which people can invest or keep their money. Because people would keep their money in the bank, but then the bank just takes your money and they invest and do stuff with it, and they give you 0.1%. They don't give you anything to borrow your money. And so you have crypto. You can put your money, you can put it in crypto, and I think of it as like real estate. I'm putting my money, like I can take 10,000. How much house will 10,000 buy me? Not a whole lot. I can put 10,000 in Bitcoin, and it's like my real estate. Okay, so that in 5 to 10 years, if it's $1 million a coin, now I'll lend it to people. You can earn interest on it, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the play that I kind of think of.
And it's having faith. It's just about having faith that you made the right decision at the end of the day. So what have we learned? We're at the tail end of the show, guys. We're way past the half hour. People are holding on to their sandwich, just like chomping the last bit. What have we learned, sir? What are our takeaways?
Oh man, you can put me on the spot like
Just
that.
one, yeah.
Just one takeaway. Oh,
He's got that deep voice. Hello. I gotta work on that. Let's go.
I'm gonna go smoke a
I gotta
cigarette.
give crypto another look. Yeah, that's my takeaway personally.
What about Satoshi? Anything else? Any takeaways we need to let people know? What's the hot stock tip right now? It's definitely not Shiba. Do not.
Hot stock. Yeah,
What are we focusing on?
It's kind of late in the cycle. I wouldn't be doing Shiba. But anyway,
I'm still looking at Visa. Visa's had a good run. Square. Let me see. Let me go back there.
I would really like to buy Ethereum, but
go there.
Ethereum, it won't. It's kind of like the Tesla. Like I want to buy more Tesla, it just won't dip.
Yeah, it's holding. It's holding just like Tesla is.
I told you this week I was doing some nibbling on certain. I bought some Facebook as a.
Oh, you got Facebook. You
Yeah,
finally listened.
I think I bought it around a little over $300. What else did I buy? I bought some Shopify
I see
around.
why.
I think it was 1,400, and I bought some Square in the 170s. I did buy Solana. Solana's still at a good price. It's 170, I think it was. Let's see, 174 right now.
Yeah, Square I think is at its bottom, but what do I know? I don't know. You see some reversal
Square
here
is kind
in the
of,
MACD.
if
a
you're
little
not
bit.
comfortable doing like crypto in and of itself, you can always do these proxies. So Square is kind of like a crypto proxy. Coinbase would be another one, and MicroStrategy. I think MicroStrategy is basically 95% Bitcoin, and then they have like a little technology business. But if you, like for example, if you don't have a crypto exchange, you can go and you have some 401k, you can buy MicroStrategy as a substitute for Bitcoin. That's another way.
So anyway, but yeah, if you want to tune in, we're way past the hour. Kelsey says hi, by the way, Ben. Kelsey's watching right now. So we're here every Friday. Sorry, Satoshi, I had to cut you off. We're way past our time. We started late too.
How much fun?
Thank you, sir, Mr. Peterson, Ben, Satoshi, Sacramento. Thank you all for joining us. We're here every Friday talking about money and the things that get us going on a Friday, which is money. What else would it be? So we'll catch you guys next Friday on Finance Friday. Adios.